I've been poor and I've been rich, and rich is definitely better, but I will say that money does not buy happiness. So I remember when I was like, man, I wish I could get to $10,000 a month. And you get to $10,000 a month, you don't even notice. Then I'm like, man, I want to get to $100,000 a month. You know, that'd be really, really cool. And then you just keep resetting the bar, resetting the bar, resetting the bar. It's like I won the battle, but I was losing the war. So you haven't won if your business is doing really well and you're making a lot of money, but everything else is going to shit.
Allan is the author of The One-Page Marketing Plan, a #1 Amazon bestseller that has transformed how over 1 million businesses worldwide approach marketing. He bootstrapped his last business from startup to 8 figures and successfully exited.
When I was writing this book, I was like, what book do I wish I had? And I think that's the reason the book has resonated with so many people. The books that come from a lived experience are by far the most powerful. I mean, in my past couple of businesses, I was in tech businesses. I had a telecom company, I had a tech company, and they were great, but no one ever called and said, man, thanks so much. We would only hear from people when there was a problem, right? Something's gone down, something's not working, whatever. Now, literally every day I get fan mail. People say, hey, I read your book, changed my life, changed my business.
Getting these messages back there is like, is it a validation for you?
Why not? It's good for my ego. But more than that, I mean, now we've sold over 1 million books worldwide. It's about the journey, right? So you wouldn't call it a goal if there was no competition, no struggle, no one trying to bash your head in, trying to get the ball off you, right? So we call it a goal when you've managed to get through all of the struggles, managed to get past all of the other people who are trying to knock you down, and you kick it through, and that's the goal. So the journey part is what makes you who you are.
So I want to be successful, but not at the expense of my health and my relationships and everything else that comes off the back of it. Allan, welcome to Flow Zone.
Hey, Mark, happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
I'm stoked to have you here as well. I've been really curious about this journey of yours of building a marketing company to 8 figures, then exiting, and what life's like on the other side of that exit. What's life like for you now that you're on the other side of that exit?
Look, when I got married, I had a net worth of about $300. I've been poor and I've been rich, and rich is definitely better. But I will say that money does not buy happiness. You know, a lot of times you just keep resetting the goal. So I remember when I was like, man, I wish I could get to $10,000 a month. And you get to $10,000 a month, you don't even notice. Then I'm like, man, I want to get to $100,000 a month. You know, that'd be really, really cool. And then you just keep resetting the bar, resetting the bar, resetting the bar. So obviously going from a very low net worth, or pretty much zero net worth, to something reasonable, your life changes dramatically. But as the bar gets higher and higher and higher, other than your cool toys, not much really changes. I mean, you know, you get cooler cars, cooler houses, all of that sort of thing. But when you get to a certain level, you start to hit diminishing returns for sure.
I have heard that from a lot of people that I've engaged with over the years as a fellow entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That the biggest growth is felt kind of in the 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And so, but you did make a comment just there that your life changes dramatically.
Yeah.
How so?
Well, when you're struggling, you're thinking about, you know, how to make it, how to get to that next level, how to pay your rent, how am I going to pay my employees, what am I going to do about my expenses? And so that's a very different mindset to when you get essentially debt-free, and now you're thinking about bigger things like self-actualization. You know, what am I here for? What would I like to do? Whereas you're kind of working in the have-to-do zone in the beginning, right? Especially if you're struggling. So you're like, I have to get to this level. I have to, and you know, both are fuel. There's, and I think of it as dirty fuel and kind of clean fuel. And dirty fuel works, and it can really drive you and get to a certain place. But I don't think you want to, you know, work with dirty fuel your whole life. So there's that transition from, you know, have to now being more purpose-driven and driven by self-actualization rather than desperation.
That's a really great telling of a perspective on that, I think, Allan. It's very self-actualizing the way you're even answering it. It's very similar to me. Like that survival thing, the have to.
Yeah.
I totally resonate with that. So we're going from surviving and having to do something so that we can continue to this sense of evolving and thriving. So one of them is like a must do just to be there.
Yeah.
But the next one is like creating what's next.
Yes.
I've seen a little bit of that since you have done the exit.
Yep.
There's this theme of contribution that's continued on.
Yeah.
What is it that drives you to continue on after you've got yourself into a position where you just don't have to work anymore?
Well, I love being able to, kind of send the elevator back down. And I mean, in my past couple of businesses, I was in tech businesses. I had a telecom company, I had a tech company, and they were great. They were a lot of fun, but no one ever called and said, man, thanks so much. Our phone system just works great. Or our IT system, it's just up all the time. Well done. We would only hear from people when there was a problem, right? Something's gone down, something's not working, whatever. Now, literally every day I get fan mail. People say, hey, I read your book, changed my life, changed my business. I literally have 2 assistants who help with answering people who've written in to my email inbox because we get so much volume. And so it's a very different type of business and a very type of experience where, you get to impact lives and people are, every day telling me how the book has impacted them. And literally I hear from all over the world. My books are now in over 40 languages. Even some languages we haven't officially translated, they've pirated it into Persian. So I hear from people in Iraq saying,
wow.
hey, read your book. And I'm like, we never translated the book into Persian, but that's okay. No worries. I'm not going to hold it against them. But that's kind of cool, right?
That's so cool. There's a little bit of pirate in every marketer too.
Yes.
So you're sort of like, that wasn't quite right, but good on you. Yeah. It's almost like a silent tap on the back.
Exactly.
What resonates with me there, Allan, is I've got this personal theme in business that I want to be a maker, not a taker.
Yep.
And actually that's for life as well. Like, in life, it's more like creative, so it's very in the same realm. You talked about tech and telephony and things of that nature in your previous businesses with Q-Tech and Voxcom, they're very much part of everyone's life anyway, right? Yeah. And the majority of those businesses often end up doing really well when things break and they fix them and sort of the service excellence becomes what they're known for.
Yeah.
But it's not too dissimilar to what I found when I first got into property development where you could buy a house side by side and they're the same house and then one of them ends up with a broken sewer pipe.
Yeah.
And now that broken sewer pipe could cost you 20 grand to fix.
Yeah.
Now when you fix it, it doesn't actually make the house better. It just stops it sticking like shit.
True.
So it's hard then to create a perception of value, even if you really helped them out. That they can see that they've just parted ways with money to fix something just to get it back to baseline. It's very hard to get impressed by that. So when you've gone into this next world of putting something out into the universe that's creating value, that must be pretty cool getting these messages back there as like, is it a validation for you?
Yeah, look, it's why not? It's good for my ego, but more than that, I mean, now I've sold over 1 million books worldwide, and just to hear from people who've read it, who've actioned it, who've had a mindset shift, and I see a lot of I wrote the book I wish I had at the time. I read a lot of books, I attended a lot of seminars, worked with a lot of mentors, and I got little bits of value from everyone, but when I was writing this book, I was like, what book do I wish I had? And I think that's the reason the book has resonated with so many people. I've been the dead broke IT geek trying to figure out, how do I get clients in the door? Why, I'm really good at what I do. Why aren't clients flooding in and knocking down the door and paying me money? And so that's the book I wrote, taking people on the journey from zero to marketing hero and really understanding it step by step.
That's great. And what they come away with from that is a one-page marketing plan. Is that right?
Yeah. So the first book is all about your strategic plan. So, and the reason I did a one-page marketing plan was because, I remember hiring a consultant to help me put together a business plan. And, it was probably like 70 pages long and charts, graphs, projections. And I'm like, shoved it in the top drawer of my desk, never saw it again. And I was angry at myself. I'm like, wasted thousands of dollars on this consultant, never looked at the plan or whatever. So when I started coaching and consulting, I wanted people to have a marketing plan because it is a useful document. Not so much the document itself, but the process you go through in getting that document, thinking about your target market, your messaging, your pricing, your positioning, all of that sort of stuff. The process you go through that is super valuable. And so I got a lot of pushback. People are like, don't know where to start, need to hire a consultant, too hard, too long, don't know what to do. And so I put together that process that will help you put together that strategy, that plan. And people who'd never had a marketing plan ever now had one. We could go through the process in literally 20 to 30 minutes. So we had a plan, a strategy that we can execute. And the second book, Lean Marketing, which is all about methodology to actually implement that plan. All right, great. You've got the plan, you've got the blueprint. Let's start building.
I can see so much value in what you end up with, but I totally resonate with what you're saying about the process you go through to get there.
Yeah.
So I'm a massive fan of scaling up, for example, and we end up with a one-page strategic plan, which is essentially 3 pages. Like you got the vision summary in the middle. And what I learned of seeing a couple of these implementations happen through the portfolio companies I advise in private equity, but also in our own group of businesses, that when we'd implemented something previously, you do all the talking, but it's kind of just done in this really quick time and they're just filling it in, almost filling the boxes out. And then you're sort of like, what's this mean again? Whereas when I implemented in our Presence Real Estate group, which is, the bricks and mortar B2C brand that we've got, and next is the B2B2C, we got the advisors that had actually been involved in writing the book. And we've spent 3 quarters back to back just to get to the point where we're going to show the team the vision summary, which is that middle piece. And so the process that we've had to go through senior and then into the extended leadership team and then to the team to get that one page has been so incredible and rewarding, particularly for me as a founder, because it's filling in a few gaps as to why I'm still here.
Yeah, of course.
Like I compared notes with another founder the other day. It's like, well, we're both in the sector. We both share common beliefs. We're both wanting to achieve something that hasn't yet been realised by enough gravity that we think it's done. And we don't need to work. So the thing that's keeping us here must be purpose. How important is purpose to you in your career journey?
Yeah, well, now it's incredibly important. I mean, I was recently reading the book, The Second Mountain, David Brooks. So the first mountain is like all about achievement, getting to, specific goals that you want, a wealth goal or a health goal or whatever else. And I love the analogy of, you get to the top and you're like, is that all there is? What else? Right. So I got there and, now what? So, it sounds kind of corny, but it really is the case that it's about the journey, right? So you wouldn't call it a goal if you just, walked, across, kicked it, and there was no competition, no struggle, no one trying to bash your head in, trying to get the ball off you, right? So we call it a goal when you've managed to get through all of the struggles, manage to get past all of the other people who are trying to knock you down, and you kick it through, and that's the goal. So very much the case and we see that with people who've maybe inherited wealth or whatever, a lot of times their lives feel purposeless, and, they end up with, some kind of addiction or some kind of other issue or whatever, because they've missed that journey part they've got to the destination, but they haven't had the journey part. So the journey part is what makes you who you are.
I fully agree with that. And I think there's a really powerful insight there. The Haitian proverb came to mind about like behind the mountain, there's more mountains, which is like the second mountain concept. And you made a comment there about, like unless there's a struggle on the way past, like trying to beat the people who are trying to knock you off along the way, then without the struggle, that there's no real meaning in it. The first mountain for me, and like you've said, a lot of people, is that I must achieve success, but also we sometimes find ourselves in a position where we just started this job or this career or this pursuit, and it started swelling because we got good at it, and then we like what we're good at. And then we find ourselves in a have-to mode because we've fallen into that. Now, the second time, there's so much more opportunity to sort of choose the path and I suppose align it with that purpose.
Yeah.
How did you go about like aligning it with the purpose, or at least identifying what your purpose is once you got over that first mountain?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you do, well, at least in my case, I don't think, hey, I found my purpose and that's it. I mean, some people are just born, they know what they want to do, they've got their purpose, they've got their passion or whatever, and they just pursue that all their lives. Those people are super lucky. I don't fall into that camp. I just find I try a lot of things and something connects and I'm like, yeah, I like the feel of this and go down that direction. And so I don't really know what I'm going to be when I grow up. I'm still trying to figure it out, right? But I've tried a few things and there are some things that have resonated, some things that haven't. But one of the things I do regret after each business that I've exited is not taking more time just to chill. I've gone straight into the next venture, straight into the next venture, straight into the next venture. And so I think if I did it again down the track, I would just maybe take a year off or whatever, spend a bit of time just thinking rather than straight into the next thing. So, but having said that, with what I'm doing now, after I exited the telecom company, I started basically designing my life. You know, I was thinking, what are the things that really light me up? What are the things that just drain energy? And I started making a list. I'm like, I don't think I want to work from an office anymore. I don't think I ever want to wear another suit again. I don't really want to work in person with a lot of people. And this was way prior to COVID, so before remote work. So I started designing and I'm like, where do I want to live? I think I want to live somewhere near the beach. You know, even like what kind of home office do I want? I want to be able to see the water from my home office. And so I just started designing it all. And then it was probably maybe about a year later, and, you know, I was working late and I was kind of like tired, feeling a bit sorry for myself. It was about 8:30 p.m. and I'm in my office. I had some deadline. I can't even remember. I was trying to get something done. And then I look over the bay from my window in my home office and, you know, there's a beautiful sunset, a few boats and things like that. And it just hit me and I'm like, I've achieved the vision that I had planned like a couple of years ago. I'm working remotely. I'm writing my book. I'm looking over the water in my home office. I'm working on cool stuff that I want to work with. I'm working with cool people. So sometimes you don't realize until you get to that situation and you're like, oh, yeah, I did it, right? So that's kind of cool. And so a lot of it is just for me at least, trying to figure out along the way what resonates, what's cool, who do I want to work with, and recalibrate along the way. So I've found often that passion follows success rather than being a precursor to it. A lot of people are like, looking for my passion, I'm trying to figure out what I'm good at or whatever. And my advice is, you know what, just figure out, try a whole bunch of different things. Something may connect with you. And, you know, like I've worked with clients all over the world in all sorts of industries. And, you know, there are clients that manufacture screws and they're passionate about it, right?
Yeah.
And they're not passionate about it because of the screws. They're passionate about it because they're now successful, generates good cash flow. It's funding their lifestyle. They're able to do stuff that they want to do. So often I find passion follows success rather than the other way around.
I think that's a really fair point. You know, like you said before, dirty fuel versus clean fuel.
Yeah.
And like, I think it's fair to say that most businesses or careers, and like, you know, this is a gross generalization with a caveat on that.
Yeah.
But most, as in more than 50%, start because someone wants to make more money.
Yeah.
You know, like, and they usually apply themselves to a role where they think that their natural talents or abilities will probably give them the best chance of making more money. But it's not always that considered anyway. It's sometimes just like, oh, there's a job or there's an opportunity or like, here I am and I need some money. And so in that process, we're like, well, how do I get better at the craft of doing this thing that gets me money? And then by getting immersed in the craft of whatever that thing is that we're trying to get better at, especially if we don't already have the skills, it stretches us.
Yeah.
And when we're stretched and then there's a challenge, that actually, as long as we know what the challenge is and we can figure out if we're on the way there or not, they are precursors or conditions that are required for flow.
Yeah.
And part of this whole flow zone journey is sort of like a live telling of my own journey as well of, becoming more self-actualized, which is after self-awareness.
Yeah.
And just figuring out things along the way of how do we feel more connected to the purpose, or how do we feel like this is holistically more like the direction I want to go in, but it's not already predetermined before we do it. Yeah. So that year is a bit of good advice to take off. I'm gauging you didn't take the year each time though.
No, I didn't. I just dived right in, and it doesn't have to be a year. It could be 6 months, could be whatever, but I wish I had taken a little bit of time to myself. I just dove right into the next project and the next one. I mean, there's so many things I've got on the back burner that I probably couldn't do it all my whole lifetime. So I'm often excited to just jump into the next thing.
I really like that. As far as challenges along the way, other sports players trying to tackle you and take you out, maybe injure you to stop you scoring a goal against their team. Tell us about an example of that's happened in the journey so far.
Yeah, look, every day I think all of us, and sometimes it's literally a competitor trying to sabotage you, and other times it's just as simple as someone close to you just not being supportive or whatever. I've got friends still from back when I was a kid, right? And we all grew up in the same neighborhood, flat broke, you could call it from Struggle Street, right? And sometimes I'll hear from some of those people, must be nice to be rich, right? And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Where I came from. Me and you, we went to the same school. We had the same opportunities. We went to the same programs, all of that sort of thing. So it didn't fall from the sky. I didn't inherit it, So those sort of things can be definitely discouraging along the way. And so part of it is you got to figure out, where do I spend more association? Where do I spend less association? And I've never had anyone kind of talk down on my goals from above. It always comes from below. People above, people who are fitter, never, say, hey, why are you wasting your time in the gym or whatever? Or, they never, think badly of you for, hey, I'm doing a coaching program, or I'm working with this person to try and get better at this skill or whatever. It's always from below that people are trying to pull you down. It's never from above.
Yeah, and I think that's a great realization now that's becoming a little bit more published. I've got some friends in the entrepreneurial circles that have risen very quickly. Some of those have been people that are in much younger age brackets around the time I started, that they're starting at a different age where there's a lot more sharing. There's a lot more authenticity now in media than there has been. There's no doubt. Even though people are talking about, it's different now, so much social media pressure. Yeah. You look at the amount of people now who are authentically telling a story, talking about mental health, but also about success and their why behind it and their learnings. It's much more available now. Yeah. And so it's probably been the last couple of years, particularly I had a major media smear a couple of years ago. And I was in it with another colleague. They handled it incredibly well because they'd come through that period and they already kind of had that fuck you anyway kind of mentality and did a great job of it. And who I'm talking about is my colleague Jack Henderson. He's a peer in the industry. Yep. We started Henderson Advocacy together. And it's scaling really well now. And he's got a big brand and profile.
Yeah, he's done well.
In the world that I was in, I'm in Newcastle, New South Wales, and it's a bit of a small poppy environment to start with. Not everyone, but enough of it. It's a convict settled town. It's got a very certain persuasion about success. There's been evidence of that in the past. And we had a lot of people, I suppose, in our business included, that maybe had some of their own sort of self-worth issues around success and what that means. And when they're hearing the pressure from outside, which was real, it was going on all around us, that was hurting me a lot, even worrying about what they thought. And then I started seeing these messages coming through from people that I really look up to that have done great things that we admire. And I started realizing that kind of the heroes of business or the mentors around me, things that I loved about them was their resilience, their ability to reframe things and move on. Yep. And it was those messages in that, the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. And I started realizing this lesson. It's very true. It's very true for me anyway. Yeah. That's not something I had early on, and it's something I'm learning later in life, but it's a very strong and potent message. You mentioned before that one of the things you wish you had was that that book that you wrote.
Yeah.
So you could have a one-page marketing plan with that.
Yeah.
The second book, then how to use it. Was there a decision to deliberately do it as two books?
No. And they both books came organically. So the first book was, this is what I wish I had, so I could come away with clarity and a framework around what to do from a marketing perspective, because there's a big problem when you just don't know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So that's
unconscious incompetence.
Yeah,
it's a pretty hard part of the wheel to be on.
Totally. So you're throwing darts at the board, hoping you'll hit something, whatever, doing random things, right? When you've got a plan, it's kind of like, you don't want to be on a plane where the pilot doesn't have a flight plan, where he goes, I think we'll go that way, and he just flies by the seat of his pants. That's dangerous, right? You get killed, the plane crash. Same with business, right? If you're flying without a plan, if you're running your business without a plan, especially a plan on how we're going to get clients, how we're going to get revenue in the door, that's a big freaking problem. And that's one of the reasons why we have such a high failure rate of businesses, because it's oxygen. If there's not cash coming in the door, you're going to starve your business of oxygen and you're gone, right? So in a similar way, I was trying to figure out what to do. So the first book was very much around finding clarity around how to structure marketing, how to figure out how to get clients and revenue in the door, how to get leads in the door. The second book really came about after working with hundreds and even thousands of clients with me and my team, and seeing some of the implementation roadblocks for them. So they had the plan, they had clarity, they were like cool, but seeing some of the roadblocks they hit, some of the things that they weren't sure of, all of that sort of thing. So I think to write a book that really resonates with people, you've got to live it. I've got a friend, Rory Vade, and he says, you're most powerfully positioned to help the person that you once were, right? Ooh. So I love that. And that very much is the case. The best books, and I know a lot of authors, we get together, we chat and all of that sort of thing. So their most successful books come from their own experiences rather than just, hey, I think I'll write a book about this and I'll research it and I'll put together some cool material. So the books that come from a lived experience are by far the most powerful.
I totally agree with that. And I think in the rise of becoming much faster, efficient and effective in producing content, particularly written content in the world of AI that we're now in, and the world of personal brands running alongside that, there's a lot of lead magnet style books out there. Yeah. They look like they're full of big fast value, but they're actually just a repackaged kind of, and they weren't even really the content of the person trying to get you into their funnel. Yeah. They're sort of like, what do I think this person's going to want? So I've got something good enough for me to talk to them.
Yeah. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, you can have books with different purposes. If it's just a lead magnet, that's fine. Okay, you put something together that you think might work or whatever, versus a book that you really want to put your name to, that's going to build your personal brand and your thought leadership framework.
Yeah, I think that is a very authentic, cut-through thing to do at the moment as well, that it does come with a much deeper layer of preparation and responsibility.
Of course. Yeah.
How do you find it with your words being published like that, that's going to be eternal? I know I've had a little bit of challenge with that, because when I speak, I know when I start to speak, I've got an intention that the way that my processing unit works up here, it's kind of like auditory digital. As I hear myself saying and I'm processing it, is this what I mean? And I can catch it by the end of the paragraph.
Yeah.
Whereas when you type it or have it written for you, it's like even if you wrote it, it's like, is that what I meant? And then go back and fiddle with it a little bit. Now, you're in marketing, so this might be slightly better than when I've written a book in the past. But how do you deal with that? It's your words going out there and being okay with it.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people about writing process. And so for me, I think it feels like coloring between the lines. So you first create what's the core concept? What's the big idea? So like for the one-page marketing plan, the big idea is, hey, we can have a marketing plan in a single page. For lean marketing, it's like, hey, you can actually get bigger results with less marketing. So that's the big idea. The 4-hour work week, right? That's like, hey, we can have a 4-hour work week instead of a 40-hour work week. The life-changing magic of tidying up, right? Tidying up can be life-changing. Wow. So it starts with the first the big idea that's and that's the thing that's going to actually sell the book. It's not how good the writing is. I mean, there are some books where the writing is just horrible, but the big idea is so strong it just sells the book, right? So what's the big idea? That's where we start. Then what's the framework? So what's the thing that's going to make the big idea work? So for the one-page marketing plan, we've got 9 blocks that make up the one-page marketing plan. They make up the 9 blocks, the 9 chapters of the book. They make up modules of the course. They make up the whole framework around the coaching and consulting program. So we start there. What's the big idea? What's the framework? And then it's a matter of just filling in the blanks, right? So when we've got the big idea, we've got the big framework. And I collect ideas all the time. Like the vast majority of stuff I write about, I have not invented. I've put it together in my framework. I've brought it together in one easy to access and understand place. But when I hear a good idea, I note it down. And it's hard for me to even listen to a podcast without pausing. And I'm like, that's a clever way of saying that, or that's a clever way of phrasing that, or whatever else. So when it comes to writing, I'm never looking at a blinking blank cursor thinking, I wonder what I should write today. No, I know, okay, I'm filling in this blank today. I've got some of these resources. So I've got all of these ideas which are relevant to that chapter, and then away we go. So it's never like, I wonder what I should write about. My writing is done when I'm listening, when I'm in the car, when I'm collecting ideas, structuring the framework, all of that sort of thing. And then the writing is just the mechanical part of putting it in the right place.
That's a great framework right there. So I think any listener or viewer can be like, I've been wanting to publish something. I've been wanting to write something. What's the framework?
Yeah.
I know I learned probably the scenic route way on that. Though I use a similar process now. Like I start with mind mapping just to get it all out.
Yeah.
And then I go through and highlight the core concepts that are like the most relevant to work on.
Yep.
And then I sort of drag it into milestones like you're talking about. What are the 9?
Yeah.
I'm curious how you do the capture when you get an idea. Like, so let's say you're listening to a podcast and you have to pause it.
Yep.
How do you do that?
And I do every single day. So I've got Apple Notes, and they're just like extensive notes. And I've got 3 main notes. Number 1 is stories. So either my stories or somebody else's story. So someone tells me an interesting story that I think, that could be interesting. That could relate to something that I might write in the future or whatever. So I've got a stories note. Then I've got what I call a snippets note, which is kind of like someone said something in an interesting way, like the one I've noted. You said earlier, you said the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. I'm like, that's a great way of phrasing it. I'm gonna use that in the future. So I won't note it down right now, but I will later.
Well,
right?
Someone has. It's on the transcript.
So stuff like that, where I've heard something put in an interesting way or an interesting phrase, or read something, whatever, I'll put it into the snippets note. And then finally, I've got my core content note, which is ideas, either ideas I've come up with or ideas I've heard somewhere. And I break that up into areas that are relevant to what I write about. So I've got areas like success and mindset and all of that. I've got areas related to marketing, areas related to business, areas related to team and hiring and things like that. So these are a lot of the areas that I write on, that, whether it's in books or on LinkedIn or email newsletters or whatever. So I'm never kind of stuck for an idea looking at a blank cursor. I'm like, I've got a framework. I've got, so if I've written something and I'm like, this is kind of bland and boring, let me look through snippets. Is there a more interesting way that I could have phrased something? So I'm like, that's a good one. The loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. So boom. And same with content. So I'm like, I'm looking, okay, I'm writing a marketing LinkedIn post or whatever. So I'm like, that's a good one. I'll write about that. So that way, I'm always capturing the best ideas, and then they're available right then and there when I need to use them.
Yeah, that's a great system you've just outlined. I've started with a couple of those systems over the years and found that my collection was easy, but my storage was hard to get recall from. So I really like the 3 pillars you've just talked about by having stories, core content, and snippets. I've often screenshotted the podcast, especially if I'm out like moving around a lot and I don't want to be like typing lots of things. I just screenshot it so I can see the minute that it was on, like the second, and I can go back to it later.
Perfect.
But now that there's like 3 buckets, I think I'm going to steal a little bit of that as well. We've just done a really good exchange and it cost us nothing. I'm curious about your sort of health habits, like call it physical and mental health habits, to maintain this level of success and discipline over such a sustained period. It seems to be actually getting stronger. What's in your kind of regime in terms of health for you?
So it's worlds apart from what it was. I mean, if you saw me 5 years ago, I was hugely overweight, never exercised, ate crap all the time. I was probably 20, 30 kilos heavier. So now I exercise 6 days a week. I do mainly weight training. I try to get close to 10,000 steps a day, and I eat super clean. So it's made a huge difference. Energy levels, focus. We're, for now at least, we're kind of trapped in this physical body, and if you can't perform at a high level physically and mentally, everything else is going to suffer. So everything is kind of downstream from how good you're feeling, how good you're operating at from a physical level. So, I heard a guy talk about, if you get fitter, you're going to make more money. And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, right? And I didn't really give it a lot of thought. But as I got fitter, I did make more money, and for multiple reasons. First of all, you've got more endurance, you've got more strength, you've got more focus, all of that sort of thing. They're the obvious things. But then there's the less obvious things, which is, hey, to be fit, to be eating well every single day, that takes discipline. So when you sharpen your discipline in one area, it's going to affect your discipline in another area. If you're like, fuck it, whatever, I'll just eat any crap or that comes my way, you're probably going to go, fuck it, that project's due tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it's late, I won't worry about it. So a discipline in one area affects disciplines in another area. So, I wish that's something I had learnt earlier. That was really only a lesson I learnt maybe 5 years ago or so. And it's massively changed my life.
What caused you to come to the realization you needed to learn? Like, how did you learn that lesson?
Yep. It was probably I think it's what you'd call a midlife crisis. So my dad had passed away, and I was looking at a photo of me and my dad, and, he was sick all his life. He was overweight. He was on dialysis, had back problems, all of that sort of thing. And I looked at the photo of me and my dad, and we looked friggin' identical. I'm like, oh, shit, I'm heading in the wrong direction. And he had diabetes and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I am really heading in the wrong direction. And so there was that. And, things were starting to go wrong in my life, health-wise, relationship-wise, in multiple ways. The only thing that was working well was business, right? And I'm like, it's like I won the battle, but I was losing the war. So you haven't won if your business is doing really well and you're making a lot of money, but everything else is going to shit. So that was really my realization, and took a few years to work myself out of that hole. But, I started working my body, started working on relationships, started working on this other stuff that I had neglected. I'd had an accumulation of neglect over the years, and cleaning all that stuff up. Yeah,
that accumulation of neglect debt.
Absolutely.
That we carry along the way.
IT guys are not known for their physical fitness and...
Well, your father has served you in a major way there.
Absolutely.
It seems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's really great that you've been able to take that lesson. So that it's like an anti-goal.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to be successful, but not at the expense of my health and my relationships and everything else that comes off the back of it. Your comment about discipline, there's a quote that's like, how you do one thing's how you do everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I definitely have also felt the benefit of that transition. And I think it comes back to really similar to clean fuel, dirty fuel. Like I'm liking that analogy, because when you do start to become successful in whatever vocation that you've got, it's pretty absorbing.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And it starts to swell to the size of the cylinder. So there's not much left. And if we haven't already made that part of our plan, especially if we're assembling the plan as we go,
then
sometimes we don't even know we need the clean fuel. Like I've looked at photos of myself in like 2018 or 19 when I started doing, I was already doing lots of fitness. But I think I was doing fitness for like dirty fuel reasons.
Yeah.
You know, like the business I was doing at the time had a lot of commercial, property development and developers and successful naughty boys, I call them, you know, like where they've sort of got out of school early, they've gone and got a construction job, but now they run a hundreds of millions of dollar construction company or some cases over $1 billion, right?
Yeah.
And so they're not really used to the same rules, and they do like having drinks at lunch. You know, they like to celebrate a development when they buy it rather than when it's sold. You know, it's none of this delayed gratification. They felt like they've already had that. So I was in that world and very comfortable in that world and getting a lot of business done, a lot of like success and accolades coming my way. And I think I attracted a lot of people who just wanted to be amongst that kind of success.
Yeah.
You know, jump on the coattails. This is the, you know, the MK train or the success train. Let's get on. We'll get to drink. We'll get to hang out with the developers. You know, this is going to be great. And then when I started to see that wasn't as sustainable, it was quite a bit of engineering to pull myself out of that. And especially the level of awareness that I had, it was quite low. I looked at that photo of myself over in Thailand, doing a 500K charity bike ride. I thought I was fit as an ox. But I looked at my body shape and there was muscles in the right places, but I could see fat around the wrong places. I'm like, how could I have had fat back then? I was like lifting heavy weights and doing things every day, but my organs were swollen.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I was eating food I was intolerant to.
Yeah.
And so when I sort of developed the framework of biology, psychology, environment, and I started realizing that it was like a massive gift to myself, that's when I started to feel the benefits of it, not to just logically engineer those in.
Yeah.
So that's a really great framework that you've just shared there, Allan. In the time that we've got left, which is pretty limited now, this conversation has really flowed. I think we're in the flow zone as we speak. I suppose I'm interested now in understanding like what kind of lies ahead for someone like yourself, because a big part of the journey you're sharing right now is, I believe, already of value to our audience because they're starting to see what it looks like just on the other side of the exit. You've gone from like operator to educator to a large extent, and that seems like it's a very important part of your makeup. But what's the next mountain look like for Allan Dibb?
Well, I like to kind of break things down into steps. So, you know, there is a ton of stuff I want to achieve and all of that sort of stuff. But I feel like, you know, and I've got a friend, James Clear, you know, Atomic Habits. And
he's a legend.
He's a legend.
I went to one of his talks recently through EO, but he's not my friend yet. That's amazing.
But he talks about systems over goals, right? And so I want to live an amazing life, right? So that means I need to have an amazing year. If I'm going to have an amazing year, I need to have 12 amazing months. And if I'm going to have 12 amazing months, I need to have, you know, most of my weeks need to be pretty good. And if I'm going to have a great week, I need to have a great day. So I start with the whole unit of the day. What does a great day look like? So, and I've basically outlined for myself a few things that will make a great day. So number one is lifting weights. I do that 6 days a week. On my day off, I still do physical fitness, but I just not lifting weights. I'm just walking or hiking or whatever. So that's one thing. I've got to write every day. I've got to create a piece of content every day. I've got to read every day. And so I've got a list of 5 or 6 things where if I do most of them, I've had a great day. If I have a lot of great days in a row, I'm going to have a great week. If I have a great week and I have multiple great weeks, I'm going to have great. So I break it down into that. So I just work that system, and then I've just put everything into my calendar that I need to get done. So just like I had this in my calendar, and I'm going to show up unless I'm physically sick or can't be there for some terrible
life happens.
Yeah, life happens. But for the most part, if I've got an appointment with a podcaster or a client or my team or whatever, I'm going to show up, right? So I want to treat my goals at least as importantly as I would a client or a whatever, right? So my workouts are in my calendar. And that means I show up. If I don't, just like I wouldn't be like, you know what, I can't be bothered going to the Flow Zone podcast today. I might just chill out or whatever. Right? I would never do that. And so exactly the same for my workout, exactly the same for my reading, exactly for the same for my writing. I'm not going to just not show up. I'm like, I've got to treat that at least as importantly as I would treat a client or, some appointment I had or whatever else. Things happen and maybe we recalibrate, whatever else. But I want to have lots of great days because that's going to mean I have a great life.
That's so potent. That is so potent. James Clear and Atomic Habits have been in my must-read and gift list for a fair while. Yeah. And, if there's one major thing I've got from him, it's engineering the start of my next day whilst I'm still in the one I'm in.
Yeah.
And, just setting yourself up for a series of they're almost little tricks to myself, of small wins that just reinforce me to get to that next goal. Because in the morning, we're subconscious. We're still basically asleep. Adenosine's still trying to pull us to sleep in a good way.
Yeah.
So, but I've always had a fast-running brain that keeps running into the evening. Yeah. And I develop a wind-down routine that instead of having this energy that I'm struggling to purge, and I used to, use glasses of wine with my steak at dinner, I don't do that so much anymore. For hardly ever would I do it. I definitely wouldn't do it to relax. It'd be more a celebration.
Yeah.
But now I've got this energy in me and I start imagining my next day and then I just start preparing the first 15 minutes of the next day and it's just so automated. It's even easier than brushing my teeth because I actually get excited about being prepared.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you know what, this is going to be so easy and effortless and I'm just going to have flow in my morning before I'm even 30 minutes through it. And it's all wins. It's like my clothes are laid out. I love efficiency.
Yeah.
So I'm like, good on you, MK. And then I get downstairs, got alkaline water and all my tonics and all that shit and beautiful reading material with no distractions. And then I have a little walk like you do on the way to St. Haven, which, biology, psychology, environment getting played out. So the way that you're talking about this engineering of your life one day at a time and informed by your friend James Clear is really potent, and I hope this snippet makes its way through to all the media channels so people get this lesson because it's a ripper. I'm going to finish on one question, and I think that you've summed it up pretty well in long form. So not summed up, but I think you've spoken about it pretty well. But if I just bring it all into that word of flow, what does flow look like for you?
It's when you're operating effortlessly, and sometimes it'll be like, oh, wow, 3 hours has passed and I've been doing this thing and it's just gone, right? So you're not like, sometimes it's just like pushing shit uphill. You're like, oh man, this is hard. This is, that's the opposite of flow, right? So to me, flow is all about, you're operating effortlessly and you're operating at a very high level.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see you're operating at a high level. The takeaways from today, they're just so deep and they're so usable. And I think it speaks volumes about the kind of authorship that you've put out into the universe, over 1 million copies sold now. So we've got the one-page marketing plan and lean marketing.
That's it.
That is brilliant. We've got to get those in the show notes because I want to get across these tools. If they're as good as what you shared today, this book's going to be epic.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on Flow Zone, Allan Dibb.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.